Michael Jackson documentary. On June 25, 2009, an emergency call came from a rented mansion in the Holmby Hills neighborhood of Los Angeles. Inside the house, paramedics found Michael Jackson unconscious and not breathing. The entertainer, who had spent most of his life commanding stadiums, television screens, and the attention of millions, was rushed to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. Doctors attempted to revive him, but it was too late. Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at the age of 50. News of his death spread around the world within minutes. Websites struggled under the sudden surge of traffic. Television networks interrupted their programming. Crowds gathered outside the hospital, his childhood home in Gary, Indiana, the Apollo Theater in New York, and landmarks across the world. For some people, it felt as if a piece of their childhood had disappeared. For others, it reopened difficult questions surrounding one of the most controversial public figures of modern entertainment. Michael Jackson had been a child prodigy, a record-breaking solo artist, a dancer who appeared to defy gravity, and a businessman who understood the value of music ownership long before many performers recognized its importance. He had also lived under relentless public scrutiny, undergone a dramatic physical transformation, and faced allegations that permanently changed how the world discussed his legacy. More than 15 years after his death, the fascination has not disappeared. His music continues to reach new generations. His dance moves are recreated across social media. His videos remain visual references for modern performers. Stage productions, documentaries, and major motion pictures continue to examine his life. But behind the awards, costumes, rumors, and controversy was a human being whose identity had been shaped almost entirely in public. This is the story of Michael Joseph Jackson. Michael was born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana, an industrial city located near Chicago. He was the eighth of the 10 children born to Joseph and Catherine Jackson. One of the children, Brandon, died shortly after birth. The surviving Jackson children grew up inside a small two-bedroom house on Jackson Street. Space was limited, money was tight, and privacy was almost non-existent. Their father, Joseph Jackson, worked as a crane operator at a steel mill. Before concentrating on his family, Joseph had played guitar in a local rhythm and blues group known as the Falcons. Catherine Jackson was deeply religious, musical, and devoted to her children. She played the clarinet and piano and raised the family according to the beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Music became one of the few activities capable of bringing the entire household together. Joseph recognized that his sons possessed musical ability. Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine began performing together, eventually joined by Marlon and the remarkably young Michael. What began as children practicing inside a crowded home was transformed into a disciplined family operation. Michael was only around 5 or 6 years old when his extraordinary ability became impossible to ignore. He could remember complicated routines, imitate the movements of established performers, and sing with an emotional force that seemed far beyond his age. He studied artists such as James Brown, Jackie Wilson, Sammy Davis Jr., Fred Astaire, and Gene Kelly. He watched how they controlled the stage and how a single gesture could command an audience. Michael was eventually placed at the center of the group. The Jackson household was not an easy training environment. Joseph demanded long rehearsals and near-perfect performances. Michael and several of his siblings later described being physically punished and emotionally intimidated when they made mistakes. Michael said that he sometimes became physically sick when he saw his father. Joseph acknowledged that he had disciplined his children harshly, but he maintained that his methods protected them from the dangers of their neighborhood and created the discipline necessary for success. Both realities became part of the Jackson family story. Joseph's control helped build one of the most successful musical families in history, but the fear and pressure experienced by his children left lasting emotional wounds. While other children were playing after school, Michael was rehearsing choreography, performing at talent shows, and traveling to clubs. The Jackson brothers entered competitions throughout the Midwest and frequently won. They performed at venues where the children sometimes witnessed adult behavior they were far too young to understand. Michael later reflected on how those experiences accelerated his exposure to the adult world while denying him an ordinary childhood. The group recorded early material for the small Steeltown label before attracting attention beyond Indiana. They performed at Harlem's Apollo Theater and eventually auditioned for Motown Records. Several artists and industry figures helped bring the group to Motown's attention. Bobby Taylor played an important role in their early development at the label. Gladys Knight also said she recommended them. Motown later marketed the story that Diana Ross had discovered the Jackson 5 because attaching her name gave the new group an immediate connection to one of the company's biggest stars. In 1969, the Jackson 5 officially joined Motown. Motown founder Berry Gordy understood the commercial potential of 5 talented brothers led by a child who sang like a seasoned soul performer. The company surrounded the group with producers, songwriters, choreographers, and media training. The Jackson 5 exploded onto the national scene. I Want You Back reached number 1. It was followed by ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. All 4 songs reached the top of the Billboard Hot 100, making the Jackson 5 the first act whose first 4 nationally released singles through a major label all reached number 1. The group's appeal crossed racial, cultural, and generational lines. Their records were energetic, their clothing was colorful, and their choreography was precise. At the center stood Michael, a small child with an enormous voice. He appeared confident when the cameras were recording. Away from the stage, however, he was still a boy attempting to survive an industry controlled by adults. Michael's childhood became a public product. He appeared on television, answered interview questions, and performed night after night. Fans screamed his name, but he had little opportunity to form ordinary friendships or discover who he was outside the group. Motown quickly developed Michael as a solo performer while keeping him in the Jackson 5. His early solo albums included Got to Be There, Ben, Music and Me, and Forever Michael. The title song from Ben, originally written for a movie about a rat, became Michael's first number 1 solo single. His performance gave the unusual material a tenderness that demonstrated his ability to make almost any song emotionally convincing. As Michael entered adolescence, the situation became more complicated. Motown had built much of the Jackson 5's image around youthful energy. The company now had to manage the reality that its young lead singer was becoming an adult. Michael's voice changed, his appearance changed, and the group wanted greater creative control. The brothers wanted to write and produce more of their own material, while Motown remained protective of its established production system. In 1975, most of the brothers left Motown and signed with Epic Records. Jermaine remained with Motown, where he was married to Berry Gordy's daughter Hazel. Randy Jackson joined the group, which could no longer legally use the name Jackson 5. They became the Jacksons. The change allowed Michael and his brothers to participate more directly in writing and production. Songs such as Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, This Place Hotel, and Can You Feel It demonstrated their expanding creative ambition. Michael was becoming increasingly focused on building a solo identity. A critical turning point arrived when he was cast as the Scarecrow in the film adaptation of The Wiz. The movie starred Diana Ross and reimagined The Wizard of Oz through a black musical perspective. The Wiz was not the commercial success its producers expected, but it changed Michael's life because it introduced him to producer Quincy Jones. Michael had been impressed by Jones's musical intelligence and asked him to recommend someone who could produce his next solo album. Jones offered himself. The partnership between Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones would produce 3 albums and alter the direction of popular music. Their first collaboration was Off the Wall, released in 1979. Michael wanted the album to prove that he was no longer simply the child from the Jackson 5. He participated intensely in the creative process, working with writers and musicians to combine disco, funk, soul, jazz, and pop. The album opened with Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, written by Michael. His mother initially expressed concern that the title might be interpreted inappropriately, but Michael explained that the song was about the feeling of dancing. Rock With You revealed a smoother side of his voice. She's Out of My Life captured an emotional vulnerability so intense that Michael reportedly cried during multiple recording attempts. The title track displayed his developing control over rhythm and arrangement. Off the Wall became a major success. It produced 4 top 10 singles, including 2 number 1 hits, and earned Michael his first competitive Grammy Award as a solo artist. Despite its success, Michael felt the album had not received the recognition it deserved. He was especially disappointed by its performance at the Grammy Awards. Rather than becoming discouraged, he became more ambitious. Michael told members of his team that his next album would become the biggest album in history. The statement sounded impossible. The recording industry was experiencing economic difficulties, disco had suffered a major backlash, and radio remained divided by rigid genre and racial categories. Michael believed those barriers could be broken. Recording sessions for Thriller brought Michael back together with Quincy Jones. The process was demanding. They recorded far more material than the final album could contain. Michael wanted every track to feel capable of becoming a hit. The album combined pop, rock, funk, rhythm and blues, and cinematic storytelling. Paul McCartney appeared on The Girl Is Mine. Eddie Van Halen contributed the explosive guitar solo on Beat It. Vincent Price provided the famous spoken section near the conclusion of Thriller. Billie Jean was built around a bass line that Michael believed was essential to the song. Quincy Jones initially thought the introduction was too long, but Michael insisted that the groove needed time to establish itself. Michael was correct. Released in late 1982, Thriller became a phenomenon unlike anything the record business had experienced. Billie Jean reached number 1. Beat It reached number 1. 7 of the album's 9 tracks became top 10 singles in the United States. The record appealed to pop audiences, rock listeners, dance clubs, and rhythm and blues radio. Michael's videos were equally important. MTV had been criticized for giving limited exposure to black performers. Michael was not literally the first black artist shown on the network, but the overwhelming success of Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller forced MTV and the broader industry to reconsider the racial boundaries governing music television. Beat It brought members of rival Los Angeles street gangs together as dancers and extras in a stylized confrontation. Instead of presenting Michael as a traditional rhythm and blues performer, the video placed him inside a cinematic world combining rock, dance, and urban storytelling. Then came the performance that changed dance history. In March 1983, Michael reunited with his brothers for the television special Motown 25. After performing with the Jacksons, he remained on stage alone as the opening rhythm of Billie Jean began. Wearing black trousers, a sparkling jacket, a fedora, and a single sequin glove, Michael moved with controlled precision. During the performance, he appeared to glide backward while walking forward. The movement was known among dancers as the backslide. Michael had studied and learned from talented street dancers, including performers connected to the West Coast popping scene. He did not invent the underlying step, but he refined, presented, and popularized it as the moonwalk. When the special aired in May 1983, the performance became a cultural event. Children attempted the move in living rooms. Professional dancers studied the recording. Michael's clothing, posture, and gestures were copied around the world. His next move was even more ambitious. Michael wanted the title track from Thriller transformed into a short horror film. He hired director John Landis, whose work included An American Werewolf in London. The project included elaborate makeup, choreography, special effects, and a narrative structure far beyond the usual promotional video. The result was a film lasting approximately 14 minutes. Michael transformed into a werewolf-like creature, danced with the undead, and turned a pop song into a global visual spectacle. Michael Jackson's Thriller helped establish the music video as a serious cinematic form. Television networks scheduled premieres. The making of documentary became commercially valuable. Fans watched repeatedly to learn the choreography. The Thriller album remained at number 1 for 37 weeks and became the best-selling album in recorded music history. Exact worldwide totals vary depending on certification methods and estimates, but its position as an unprecedented global success is not seriously disputed. At the 1984 Grammy Awards, Michael won 8 awards in a single night. His achievement established a record that remained unsurpassed, although it was later tied. Michael Jackson was now more than a successful musician. He had become the most famous entertainer on the planet. With that success came intense commercial pressure. Companies wanted access to his image. In 1984, Michael and his brothers signed a major endorsement agreement with Pepsi. During the filming of a Pepsi commercial at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, a pyrotechnic effect was activated at the wrong time. Sparks ignited Michael's hair, causing serious burns to his scalp. Michael continued moving for several seconds before people around him realized he was on fire. He was rushed to the hospital and underwent treatment. Pepsi reached a settlement with him, and Michael donated the money to the burn treatment center that cared for him. The accident became important in later discussions about Michael's health. He experienced pain and underwent medical procedures following the injury. Members of his family and people close to him later connected this period to his increasing exposure to prescription medication. The precise path from the accident to his later dependency cannot be established with certainty, but the Pepsi incident marked the beginning of a long and difficult medical history. The year 1984 also brought the Jacksons' Victory Tour. The tour was commercially enormous but surrounded by disagreement over ticket prices, promotion, and family control. Michael announced near its conclusion that he would no longer tour with his brothers. He wanted complete control over the next stage of his career. Michael also understood something many performers ignored. Songs could generate wealth long after an artist stopped recording them, especially when the publishing rights were owned. Paul McCartney had previously explained the value of music publishing to Michael. When ATV Music became available, Michael entered a competitive bidding process. In 1985, he purchased the company for approximately $47.5 million. The catalog included thousands of songs, most famously a large portion of the Lennon and McCartney compositions recorded by the Beatles. The purchase damaged Michael's friendship with McCartney, who felt uncomfortable that Michael now controlled rights connected to his former group. From Michael's perspective, the transaction was a legitimate investment conducted through an open sale. Financially, the decision proved brilliant. Michael was not merely an artist being paid by the music business. He had become one of its most powerful owners. That same year, Michael joined Lionel Richie in writing We Are the World. Produced by Quincy Jones and recorded by an all-star collection of musicians under the name USA for Africa, the song raised money and awareness for famine relief efforts in Africa. The recording reflected Michael's growing desire to address humanitarian themes. His later work repeatedly explored racism, poverty, war, environmental destruction, and the suffering of children. Michael's success allowed him to support hospitals, charities, and humanitarian campaigns. He frequently invited seriously ill and disadvantaged children to attend concerts or visit his properties. His relationship with children would later become the most fiercely debated part of his life. Supporters saw generosity and an emotional connection rooted in his lost childhood. Critics believed his behavior lacked appropriate boundaries. During the middle of the 1980s, Michael's image began changing. His skin appeared lighter. His nose became narrower. His hair, clothing, and makeup became increasingly stylized. Rumors spread that he wanted to erase his black identity. Michael denied that interpretation. He explained that he had vitiligo, a condition that destroys pigment in patches of the skin. The condition was later documented in his autopsy. Because uneven patches were difficult to conceal, makeup and eventually depigmentation treatment were used to create a more consistent appearance. Michael also dealt with lupus, according to medical reporting and people close to him. He acknowledged having cosmetic surgery on his nose and a cleft added to his chin, but he denied the much larger number of procedures attributed to him. Photographs across the years continued to fuel public speculation. His transformation cannot be explained by one factor. Vitiligo was real. The burn injury affected his scalp and required treatment. Cosmetic procedures altered his features. Makeup, lighting, aging, weight fluctuations, and hairstyling changed how he appeared. There may also have been a psychological dimension. Michael had been teased about his appearance by family members and had experienced severe acne as a teenager. He possessed the money and opportunity to modify features about which he felt insecure. But claims that he simply wanted to become white ignored both his diagnosed skin condition and his repeated identification with black music, history, and culture. Tabloid coverage became relentless. Stories claimed Michael slept inside a hyperbaric chamber, attempted to purchase the bones of the Elephant Man, and lived in a fantasy world with his chimpanzee, Bubbles. Some stories were exaggerated, some were false, and some were encouraged by publicity strategies designed to make Michael appear mysterious. The strategy backfired. British tabloids began referring to him with a nickname he hated. The public increasingly saw him not only as a musical genius, but as an eccentric celebrity who existed outside ordinary reality. Michael responded through his music. Bad was released in 1987. Expectations were almost impossible because every number would be compared with Thriller. Michael adopted a harder visual image. Leather, metal buckles, and aggressive choreography replaced some of the softer styling associated with his earlier work. The album produced 5 number-1 singles in the United States, the first album ever to accomplish that achievement. Those songs included I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, and Dirty Diana. The short film for Bad was directed by Martin Scorsese. The Way You Make Me Feel presented romantic street choreography. Smooth Criminal introduced one of Michael's most memorable visual worlds, featuring a white suit, fedora, and a nightclub inspired by classic gangster cinema. During Smooth Criminal, Michael and his dancers performed an extreme forward lean that appeared physically impossible. For live performances, Michael and members of his team developed a system allowing special shoes to connect with pegs rising from the stage. The mechanism was later patented. The Bad World Tour became Michael's first solo tour. It traveled across multiple continents and demonstrated his ability to command enormous stadium audiences without his brothers. Every part of the production was planned with precision. Lighting, clothing, sound effects, dance breaks, and pauses were designed to generate maximum excitement. Michael's movement style combined several traditions. He used popping, locking, mime, tap, jazz, street dance, and gestures inspired by classic Hollywood performers. His spins were rapid, his stops were sudden, and his isolation of individual body parts created the impression that rhythm was moving through him like electricity. His voice contained similar contrasts. He could sing gently in a high register and then produce screams, grunts, and rhythmic breaths that became part of the percussion. Critics sometimes focused on these sounds as eccentric behavior, but inside the music, they functioned as carefully controlled vocal instruments. In 1988, Michael purchased Sycamore Valley Ranch in California for a reported price of around $17 million. He renamed it Neverland Valley Ranch after the fictional world in Peter Pan. Neverland included amusement rides, a movie theater, a train, animals, statues, and elaborate gardens. Michael described it as a place where he could experience the childhood he had missed. He also opened the ranch to groups of disadvantaged and seriously ill children. Neverland reflected both the beauty and danger of Michael's attempt to rebuild childhood as an adult. For supporters, it was a private sanctuary created by someone who had spent his entire youth working. For critics, it represented an adult man surrounding himself with children, toys, and an environment where normal boundaries could become confused. At the time, however, Neverland was mainly presented as the magical home of the world's biggest entertainer. Michael released the film Moonwalker in 1988. The project combined music videos, fantasy sequences, and a loose narrative. It included the extended Smooth Criminal sequence and further demonstrated that Michael viewed songs as visual experiences. Behind the success, his personal world was becoming more isolated. Michael could not enter a store, visit an amusement park, or walk through a city without being surrounded. He sometimes rented locations after closing so he could experience ordinary activities privately. People close to him described someone who could be playful and deeply curious, but also guarded and sensitive. He surrounded himself with employees, security, advisors, and business associates. Determining who genuinely cared about him became increasingly difficult. His relationship with Quincy Jones also changed. After 3 enormously successful albums, Michael wanted a new sound and greater independence. For Dangerous, Michael worked extensively with producer Teddy Riley, one of the architects of New Jack Swing. The album, released in 1991, combined electronic rhythms, industrial textures, gospel, pop, and rhythm and blues. Black or White became a worldwide #1 hit. Its short film featured Macaulay Culkin, elaborate global dance sequences, and groundbreaking digital morphing effects. The longer version ended with Michael dancing alone through a city street, smashing windows, and grabbing his body. The sequence generated controversy and was edited for later broadcasts. Michael explained that the destruction was intended as a protest against racism, and later versions added racist symbols to the objects being destroyed. Remember the Time, directed by John Singleton, featured Eddie Murphy, Iman and Magic Johnson in an Egyptian setting. In the Closet paired Michael with model Naomi Campbell. Jam featured basketball star Michael Jordan. Heal the World expressed Michael's humanitarian ambitions. The Dangerous era confirmed that Michael remained a global force even as popular music shifted toward hip-hop, grunge, and alternative rock. In January 1993, Michael performed during the Super Bowl halftime show. Before his appearance, halftime had not consistently been treated as a major destination for the world's biggest pop stars. Michael stood completely still for an extended period as the crowd roared, demonstrating that his silence could command as much attention as movement. The performance helped transform the halftime show into one of the most valuable stages in entertainment. In February 1993, Michael participated in a live interview with Oprah Winfrey at Neverland. It was his first major television interview in years and attracted an enormous worldwide audience. Michael discussed his childhood, loneliness, appearance, and vitiligo. He denied being ashamed of his race and described the pain caused by speculation about his skin. The interview presented a more vulnerable Michael. For a brief period, it appeared capable of reducing the mystery surrounding him. Only months later, his life changed permanently. In 1993, a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler accused Michael of sexual abuse. A civil lawsuit moved forward while authorities conducted criminal investigations. In January 1994, Michael's representatives reached a civil settlement with the Chandler family. The total arrangement was widely reported at more than $20 million, including money placed in a trust for the boy and payments covering legal expenses. The settlement did not include an admission of wrongdoing. It is important to understand what the settlement did and did not establish. A civil settlement is not a criminal conviction. It does not legally prove that an allegation occurred. It also does not prove that an accusation was false. The settlement did not legally prevent prosecutors from continuing their investigation. Authorities continued examining the case, but no criminal charges were filed. The accuser did not participate in a criminal prosecution. Michael's attorneys said the settlement was made because the civil case threatened to interfere with a potential criminal defense in Michael's career. Critics argued that an innocent person should never have agreed to such a large payment. The case divided the public and created questions that would follow Michael for the rest of his life. During this turbulent period, Michael formed a relationship with Lisa Marie Presley, the daughter of Elvis Presley. They married in May 1994. The union immediately generated suspicion. Some observers believed it was intended to repair Michael's public image. Both Michael and Lisa Marie maintained that the relationship was genuine. Lisa Marie appeared in the short film for You Are Not Alone, where the couple was presented in intimate, almost mythological imagery. Their personalities and circumstances were difficult to combine. Lisa Marie was strong-willed and protective of her independence. Michael lived inside a complicated system of employees, advisors, and public expectations. The marriage ended in divorce in 1996. Lisa Marie later spoke about caring deeply for Michael while feeling unable to save him from the people, pressures, and destructive patterns surrounding his life. Michael returned to music with History Past, Present, and Future Book 1 in 1995. The double album combined a collection of earlier hits with new material. The new songs revealed anger, fear, and defiance. Scream, a collaboration with his sister Janet Jackson, attacked media harassment. Its futuristic short film, directed by Mark Romanek, became famous for its ambitious design and enormous reported cost. They Don't Care About Us addressed oppression and institutional violence. Certain lyrics were criticized as offensive. Michael said the song's message was anti-prejudice and later revised the recording. Earth Song turned environmental destruction and human suffering into a dramatic gospel performance. Stranger in Moscow captured isolation and emotional exhaustion. Childhood attempted to explain the emotional foundation of Michael's adult behavior. You Are Not Alone became the first song in Billboard history to debut at #1 on the Hot 100. The album was both a commercial project and a personal defense statement. Michael also completed a major business transaction during this period. In 1995, his ATV publishing catalog was combined with Sony's publishing operation to form Sony ATV Music Publishing. Sony reportedly paid Michael approximately $95 million while each side retained a 50% interest in the new company. The deal gave Michael enormous financial power and ownership in one of the world's most valuable music publishing businesses. His wealth, however, did not guarantee financial stability. Michael's lifestyle was extraordinarily expensive. Neverland required a large staff. His projects involved ambitious production budgets. He borrowed money using valuable assets as security. As long as his catalog continued increasing in value, lenders were willing to provide enormous sums. But debt and interest were quietly accumulating. Michael married nurse Debbie Rowe in November 1996. Rowe had met Michael through dermatologist Dr. Arnold Klein's medical office. Their relationship became closer after Lisa Marie's marriage to Michael ended. Michael and Debbie had 2 children. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., known as Prince, was born in 1997. Paris Michael Catherine Jackson was born in 1998. Michael and Debbie divorced in 1999. Michael became the children's primary parent. His 3rd child, Prince Michael Jackson II, was born through a surrogate in 2002. He was publicly nicknamed Blanket and later chose to be known as BG. Michael attempted to protect his children from the public attention that had shaped his own childhood. They sometimes wore masks or veils in public. The practice was mocked, but people close to the family said Michael wanted his children to maintain enough privacy to enter public places without immediately being recognized. His parenting became the subject of intense criticism in November 2002. While greeting fans from a hotel balcony in Berlin, Michael briefly held the infant BG beyond the railing while supporting him with one arm. The moment generated immediate outrage. Michael apologized and called it a terrible mistake, explaining that he had become caught up in the excitement of showing the baby to fans. The incident reinforced the public perception that Michael's judgment had become unreliable. Professionally, Michael was also experiencing difficulty. Invincible, released in 2001, was his first full studio album in 6 years. It reportedly became one of the most expensive albums ever recorded. The album debuted at number 1 and included You Rock My World, Butterflies, and Cry. Its commercial performance would have been considered successful for almost any artist, but Michael was evaluated against the impossible standard created by Thriller. Michael became involved in a bitter conflict with Sony Music and executive Tommy Mottola. He accused the company of failing to promote the album properly and publicly described Mottola in extremely harsh terms. Sony maintained that it had invested heavily in the project and that Michael's demands had become difficult to manage. In September 2001, Michael staged 2 concerts at Madison Square Garden celebrating his 30th anniversary as a solo performer. The shows included a reunion with his brothers and appearances from major contemporary artists. Only days after the second concert, the September 11th attacks transformed the country. Michael helped organize the charity song, What More Can I Give? Although complications prevented the release from achieving the impact originally expected. By this point, Michael's public life had become a mixture of nostalgia, musical brilliance, and increasingly damaging controversy. Bashir was given extensive access to Michael, his children, and Neverland. Michael believed the program would show his humanity. Instead, the documentary highlighted behavior likely to alarm viewers. To Michael, sharing a bed or bedroom represented innocent affection and trust. To many viewers, the behavior was inappropriate regardless of whether sexual conduct occurred. The program also featured Gavin Arvizo, a young cancer survivor who had spent time with Michael. Michael was shown holding the boy's hand while discussing their friendship. After the documentary aired in 2003, members of the Arvizo family accused Michael of sexual abuse. Authorities opened a new investigation. Police raided Neverland while Michael was away. He later surrendered and was charged with offenses that included child molestation, providing alcohol to a minor, and conspiracy. The case went to trial in Santa Barbara County in 2005. The trial became an international media circus. Reporters filled the area outside the courthouse. Fans traveled from around the world to support Michael. Television programs analyzed his clothing, expressions, and physical condition. Prosecutors argued that Michael had used his celebrity and Neverland to gain the trust of vulnerable families. The defense presented the Arvizo family as unreliable and motivated by financial opportunity. Witnesses offered conflicting accounts. Some former employees made damaging claims about behavior they said they observed. The defense attacked their credibility and pointed to employment disputes and previous attempts to sell stories. Several adults who had spent time with Michael as children denied that he had behaved sexually toward them. Macaulay Culkin testified that Michael had never molested him and described the allegations involving him as completely false. Wade Robson, a dancer who had known Michael since childhood, testified for the defense and denied being abused. Years later, Robson would reverse that position and say Michael had abused him. On June 13, 2005, the jury found Michael Jackson not guilty on every criminal charge. Legally, the result was complete acquittal. That verdict must be described accurately. Michael was charged, tried, and acquitted. No criminal court ever convicted him of child abuse. At the same time, the verdict did not end the wider public argument. Supporters viewed the acquittal as confirmation that Michael had been targeted because of his fame and wealth. Critics believed his behavior with children remained unacceptable even when prosecutors could not prove a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. The trial devastated Michael physically, emotionally, and financially. Afterward, he largely abandoned Neverland. The property that had symbolized his attempt to reclaim childhood now represented police searches, accusations, and humiliation. Michael spent time outside the United States, including periods in Bahrain and Ireland. He also lived in Las Vegas while attempting to plan a professional return. His finances were under severe pressure. Reports at the time of his death estimated that his debts had grown to hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet he still controlled assets worth enormous amounts, including interests in valuable publishing catalogs and his own recordings. Michael was not simply poor or bankrupt in the ordinary sense. He was asset-rich, heavily indebted, and dependent on complicated financial arrangements. In 2008, Thriller 25 was released to celebrate the album's anniversary. The project included updated versions featuring contemporary artists and introduced the album to another generation. Behind the scenes, larger plans were developing. In March 2009, Michael appeared before the media in London and announced a concert residency called This Is It. The performances were scheduled for the O2 Arena. Only 10 shows were initially announced, but demand was so intense that the schedule expanded to 50. The concerts offered Michael a potential path out of financial trouble and an opportunity to restore his position as the world's greatest live entertainer. Rehearsals began in Los Angeles under the direction of Kenny Ortega. Dancers were selected, elaborate stage sequences were created, and Michael began working through his catalog. Footage from the rehearsals showed moments of extraordinary ability. Even when moving at partial intensity, Michael could control the room. He corrected musical arrangements, adjusted dancers, and demonstrated a detailed understanding of every element of the production. People around the rehearsals gave different descriptions of his condition. Some remembered energetic and focused performances. Others said he appeared thin, exhausted, and occasionally confused. One problem was undeniable. Michael suffered from severe insomnia. According to evidence later presented in court, Michael was receiving a variety of medications from Dr. Conrad Murray, the physician hired to care for him during the concert preparation. The most dangerous substance was propofol, a powerful anesthetic normally used in controlled medical settings. Michael referred to it as his milk because of its white appearance. Propofol was not an ordinary sleep medication. It could suppress breathing and required careful monitoring, appropriate equipment, and trained medical supervision. On the night before his death, Michael returned home after rehearsal and struggled to sleep. Murray administered multiple medications. Michael eventually received propofol. According to the official account developed through the investigation and trial, Murray left Michael unattended and failed to maintain the level of monitoring required for an anesthetized patient. Michael stopped breathing. Murray attempted resuscitation, but valuable time was lost before emergency services were contacted. Michael was transported to the hospital and pronounced dead on June 25, 2009. The Los Angeles County coroner determined that Michael died from acute propofol intoxication, with other sedatives contributing. His death was ruled a homicide. In 2011, Conrad Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. He received a 4-year sentence and served approximately 2 years before being released. Murray's conviction established criminal responsibility for the medical negligence surrounding Michael's death. It did not answer every question about how Michael had reached such a dangerous level of dependency. Michael had access to numerous doctors, medications, and powerful people willing to accommodate him. His fame made it difficult for employees to challenge his demands. The system around him depended financially on keeping him functioning. He was treated as an entertainment empire even when he needed to be treated as a vulnerable patient. Michael's memorial service was held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles on July 7, 2009. It was watched by a massive international audience. His brothers carried his gold-covered casket. Musicians performed his songs. Friends described his generosity and humor. Near the end of the service, 11-year-old Paris Jackson approached the microphone. Fighting through tears, she said that her father had been the best father anyone could imagine. For a moment, the global icon disappeared and the world saw the private loss of a child. Michael was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Only months later, rehearsal footage from his planned concerts was released as the film Michael Jackson's This Is It. The footage offered a final look at Michael working on stage. The movie became a worldwide success. It also generated debate. Some viewers saw proof that Michael remained capable of delivering a major comeback. Others saw a physically fragile performer being pushed toward a schedule he might never have completed. Death transformed Michael's finances. Interest in his music surged. Albums returned to the charts. Licensing opportunities expanded. The estate renegotiated debt and developed new projects. Cirque du Soleil created major productions based on his music. Michael Jackson The Immortal World Tour became an international touring success. Michael Jackson 1 established a permanent presence in Las Vegas. The Broadway production, MJ the Musical, opened in 2022. Centered on rehearsals for the Dangerous World Tour, the show used Michael's music and choreography to explore his career. It became a major commercial success and won multiple Tony Awards. In 2016, Sony purchased the Jackson estate's half of Sony ATV Music Publishing for approximately $750 million. The estate retained Michael's own songs and interests in other music assets. In 2024, a court allowed the estate to proceed with another reported agreement involving Sony. The transaction was widely described as a purchase of roughly half of Michael's interests in his recorded music and publishing assets for at least $600 million. The numbers demonstrated the lasting value of the catalog Michael had built. But financial success could not resolve the allegations surrounding him. In 2013, choreographer Wade Robson filed a claim alleging that Michael had sexually abused him during childhood. The allegation represented a dramatic reversal because Robson had previously denied abuse and testified for Michael's defense in 2005. Robson said he had been unable to understand or acknowledge the abuse until adulthood. James Safechuck made similar allegations, saying Michael had abused him as a child after they met during a commercial production. Their accounts became the focus of the 2019 documentary, Leaving Neverland. The documentary gave both men extensive time to describe their allegations and explain why they had previously defended Michael. It did not include a full on-camera response from the Jackson estate. Michael's estate and family strongly denied the allegations. They pointed to inconsistencies, disputed timelines, and the men's earlier statements. Supporters argued that the documentary presented accusations as established fact without giving the defense equal treatment. Robson and Safechuck maintained that their accounts were truthful and that delayed disclosure is common among survivors of childhood abuse. Because Michael was dead, he could not personally respond or face another criminal proceeding. The legal cases shifted toward Michael's companies. After dismissals and appeals connected to California law, civil claims involving Robson and Safechuck were revived and consolidated. A trial is currently scheduled for February 2028. These are still allegations. They have not resulted in a civil verdict establishing liability, and Michael was never convicted of sexual abuse. The responsible approach is not to treat accusation as automatic proof. It is also not responsible to dismiss every accuser simply because Michael created beloved music. The known record contains conflicting testimony, changing accounts, financial interests, unusual behavior, and a complete criminal acquittal in 2005. People examining the evidence reach sharply different conclusions. Some believe Michael was an emotionally damaged but innocent man whose generosity toward children was repeatedly misunderstood and exploited. Others believe his fame, wealth, and carefully constructed world allowed abusive behavior to remain hidden. A third group accepts that the available public evidence may never provide a definitive answer. That uncertainty is now part of Michael Jackson's history. It exists beside achievements that are much easier to measure. Michael changed the scale of the music video. Before Thriller, promotional videos were often treated as marketing accessories. Michael approached them as short films requiring directors, actors, special effects, narratives, and choreography. He changed the relationship between black performers and mainstream music television. His success made it impossible for programmers to claim that black artists could not attract mass audiences. He changed live performance. Modern stadium concerts frequently combine cinematic introductions, narrative interludes, complicated lighting, large dance teams, and precisely synchronized visual effects. Michael helped establish that model. He changed dance. The moonwalk became his signature, but his influence extended far beyond one step. His spins, toe stands, robotic isolations, and sudden poses became a vocabulary studied by performers around the world. Artists including Beyoncé, Usher, Chris Brown, Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars, The Weeknd, and countless others have acknowledged or visibly demonstrated his influence. His impact extends across genres and countries. Performers who do not speak English have learned his choreography. Children born decades after Thriller recognize the red jacket and white glove. Michael also changed how artists thought about ownership. His purchase of ATV showed that performers could use their success to acquire the intellectual property behind the music business. His career contained extraordinary contradictions. He became one of the most celebrated black entertainers in history, while his changing appearance created painful questions about identity. He tried to recover his stolen childhood by constructing Neverland, but that environment became inseparable from allegations involving children. He earned hundreds of millions of dollars while accumulating massive debt. He inspired global crowds, but repeatedly described loneliness. He demanded perfection on stage while his personal life became increasingly unstable. He wanted complete control over his image, yet became one of the most misunderstood and uncontrollable stories in celebrity history. Michael's relationship with the press intensified many of these contradictions. Some reporting exposed legitimate problems. The public had valid reasons to question his medical care, financial arrangements, and boundaries with children. Other coverage reduced him to a collection of dehumanizing jokes. Every change in his face became a headline. Every unusual purchase became evidence that he was no longer human. The more Michael withdrew, the easier it became for others to define him. His masks, disguises, and carefully managed appearances were attempts to control attention, but they often created even more attention. Michael's art sometimes functioned as his most direct response. Man in the Mirror presented change as a personal responsibility. Black or white argued for racial unity. They Don't Care About Us expressed anger toward oppressive institutions. Earth Song confronted environmental destruction. Childhood asked listeners to consider what had been taken from him. His songs did not provide a complete explanation of his behavior, but they revealed the subjects that occupied his mind. Children represented innocence. The world represented corruption. The press represented persecution. Music represented escape. The danger was that Michael's search for innocence sometimes prevented him from recognizing normal adult boundaries. Even if every criminal accusation were set aside, inviting unrelated children into private sleeping spaces was profoundly unwise. Michael's insistence that his intentions were innocent did not remove the responsibility to understand how the conduct appeared or how vulnerable it made everyone involved. His celebrity may have isolated him from people willing to say no. Employees could lose their jobs. Business partners depended on his cooperation. Doctors could earn extraordinary fees. Friends could gain access to a world unavailable to ordinary people. The more powerful Michael became, the fewer people around him could challenge him honestly. This dynamic was especially dangerous when combined with physical pain, insomnia, anxiety, and prescription medication. Conrad Murray delivered the final drug, But Michael's death was also the product of a larger environment that had treated extraordinary access as normal. The entertainment industry had celebrated Michael's ability to work beyond ordinary human limits since he was a child. At 5 years old, he was expected to perform like an adult. At 24, he was expected to reinvent popular music. After Thriller, every album was expected to break history again. At 50, deeply in debt and struggling to sleep, he was expected to complete 50 major concerts. The world repeatedly asked Michael Jackson to be superhuman. He repeatedly attempted to satisfy that demand. His body ultimately could not. Michael's influence has been formally recognized by major cultural institutions. He received 13 competitive Grammy Awards from 38 nominations. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, first as a member of the Jackson 5 and later as a solo artist. Thriller was added to the National Recording Registry because of its cultural, historical, and artistic importance. The Thriller short film became the first music video selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. His commercial records have been challenged and updated as the music industry changed, but the scale of his achievement remains exceptional. Thriller continues to return to music charts. Billie Jean remains instantly recognizable from its opening beat. Seasonal interest brings Thriller back every Halloween. Viral dance videos introduce his movements to audiences with no personal memory of his lifetime. In April 2026, the major biographical film Michael reached theaters. Directed by Antoine Fuqua, it starred Michael's nephew Jaffer Jackson. Casting a member of the Jackson family gave the performance an unusual physical and emotional connection. Jaffer recreated Michael's posture, movement, and vocal mannerisms while portraying the person behind the public image. The film introduced Michael's story to another worldwide audience. By July 2026, reporting placed its global box office total above $1 billion, making it the highest-grossing biographical film ever released. Its success proved that public interest in Michael Jackson had not faded. The fascination exists because his story contains nearly every element of modern fame. Talent, family pressure, race, money, ownership, childhood trauma, reinvention, media manipulation, medical dependency, criminal accusations, and a death witnessed emotionally by the entire world. Michael Jackson cannot be accurately reduced to a hero or a monster. The child who sang, "I'll Be There" was real. The perfectionist who recorded Thriller was real. The businessman who purchased one of the world's most valuable publishing catalogs was real. The lonely adult who built an amusement park around his home was real. The father remembered lovingly by his children was real. The man whose behavior created serious concern was also real. So were the allegations, his denials, and his acquittal. A complete documentary must allow these realities to exist together, even when they remain uncomfortable. Michael's final years should not erase his artistic achievement. His artistic achievement should not be used to silence difficult questions. What remains certain is that very few individuals have ever influenced global popular culture so completely. He changed how music looked, how dance moved, and how celebrity operated. He made music videos feel like film premieres. He transformed a television performance into a moment studied for generations. He made a single glove, a fedora, and a red jacket into international symbols. His voice crossed languages. His movements crossed borders. His ambition expanded the limits of what a recording artist could become. But the cost was enormous. Michael lost the freedom of an ordinary childhood before he was old enough to understand what had been taken. He spent adulthood trying to recreate innocence inside a world that no longer viewed him innocently. He acquired wealth capable of building almost any fantasy, but not the ordinary human relationships and peaceful sleep he appeared to need most. On stage, Michael Jackson controlled every second. He decided when the music started. He decided when the dancers moved. He could stand in silence and allow anticipation to build until an entire stadium screamed. Away from the stage, that control disappeared. His family relationships were complicated. His finances became dangerous. His medical treatment became reckless. His private behavior became public evidence in a debate that continues after his death. Perhaps that is the final tragedy of Michael Jackson. He mastered the art of creating unforgettable images, but he could never create one final image capable of explaining the complete man. For some, he will always be the child from Gary who escaped poverty through talent. For others, he will be the king of pop standing beneath a spotlight as thousands of people shouted his name. Some will remember the allegations before the music. Others will defend him forever because the criminal justice system acquitted him and because they believe he was targeted. History will continue examining all of it. The records will continue playing. The lawsuits will continue moving through court. New films, books, and documentaries will reinterpret the same evidence. Future generations will debate where admiration ends and accountability begins. But whenever the baseline of Billie Jean begins, whenever a dancer glides backward across a stage, or whenever a music video attempts to become something larger than promotion, Michael Jackson's influence remains present. He once pursued the impossible goal of becoming the greatest entertainer in the world. For a period of time, by nearly every measurable standard, he achieved it. What he could not achieve was escape. Not from his childhood, not from the machinery of fame, not from controversy, and not from the impossible expectations created by his own success. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009. The performance ended. The argument did not. And the world is still watching. If you enjoyed this content, please share and subscribe.